Hello everybody, my name is Nordic97 and welcome back to yet again another video, and today we're tier ranking. We're tier ranking every single NHL team's off seasons, categorizing all 32 teams into 5 different columns. This should be a decently long and a decently fun video, so make sure to go get a snack, and if you haven't already, make sure to go subscribe down below. I would greatly appreciate it. And anyways, let's get into the video. So starting off here, I actually randomized all the teams. So as you can tell here, I got all the teams in a completely random order. Minnesota Wild fans, you're welcome. Vancouver Canucks fans, I'm sorry. So anyways, let's get into it here. So starting off here with the Minnesota Wild, well, what did they really all do in all honesty? Well, they got some minor contracts out to some of their players. They were able to re-sign Marc-Andre Fleury. They did trade Cam Talbot away over to the Ottawa Senators in exchange for Philip Gustafson. I don't mind that move all too much. I think it was a good one-for-one goalie deal. I think Gustafson has some good potential, and on a better team like the Minnesota Wild, I think he definitely will play better. But overall, it wasn't the most eventful offseason for the Minnesota Wild. They kind of did some things, not really so much. So I'm going to put them in the okay column, if I'm correct. To my knowledge, they haven't done all too much besides re-sign Fleury and make that Cam Talbot trade. But apart from that, they didn't have all too bad of an offseason. So anyways, moving on to the Dallas Stars. Dallas, so they lost John Klingberg. It's not entirely too sure if they 100% lost Klingberg yet. But as of right now, he's not on the team. I do like the signing of Mason Marchment. I really like that signing. I think Marchment's a really solid top 6 forward who's developed into a great player with the Florida Panthers, and I think he'll do well with the Dallas Stars. I also like the signing of Colin Miller. So overall, I think Dallas had a pretty solid offseason as well. So I'm going to put them in, if this could move, I'm going to put them in the good column because, I mean, why not? They didn't have all too bad of an offseason. I think they had some underrated moves as of wise, so I think it was pretty solid. As for Winnipeg, they didn't really do all too much. In all honesty, like when you look at Winnipeg, they really didn't do anything. They signed David Rittich as a backup for now. They lost Eric Comrie. Comrie's obviously off to the Buffalo Sabres, but they signed David Rittich, who was not good with Nashville. So I'm not too sure. I'm kind of optimistic. I like the signing of Rick Bowness, and that's kind of really what keeps them out of the did nothing column. So overall, I think I'm honestly gonna have to put them in the I don't know. I don't know because I don't like the David Rittich signing. But I'm trying to think of like what they've really done. They really haven't done all too much. So I mean, I mean, it kind of evens out. So I'm going to put them in okay for now. I mean, you could say Winnipeg had a bad offseason, but I'm going to put them in okay. Now, Carolina. You could look at Carolina a couple different ways. You could look at Carolina and say, well, they lost D'Angelo. They lost a good amount of players. They lost D'Angelo. They lost Trocheck. They could lose Natchez. So it's looking not so good right now for the Carolina Hurricanes in that area. But then again, they did acquire Brent Burns and they got Max Pacioretty and Dylan Coghlan for virtually nothing. So I think honestly, I would honestly put Carolina in good offseason. Even though they did lose a good amount, I do like the moves that they made. I like Brent Burns. You guys, some people say Brent Burns' contract is bad, and you may be right. His contract may be a little bit too extreme. But he has very good advanced analytics. He was the second best defenseman I forget what, it was a certain stat. He was like the second best behind Jacob Slavin. So, interesting thing there. I think I'm going to put Carolina and had a pretty good offseason. I don't mind. And I actually really like the moves that they made. So overall, I think they are a very solid team. Next up, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Toronto. So the difficult thing is with Toronto is that their goaltending tandem of Jack Campbell and Peter Mrazek and all of that is gone. Okay, they dealt Mrazek off to Chicago, and obviously now Campbell's in Edmonton. So now their goaltending tandem next year is going to be Ilya Samsonov and Matt Murray. I don't like that. I don't think, and I truly don't think that's going to fly with Maple Leafs fans. And I don't think it is right now. I don't think it's going to fly with Maple Leafs fans come next season. But I do like the signing of Cale Yarncrook. I like that a lot. I like the signing of Nicolas Aube-Kubel. They signed some solid depth players, and they kind of do this every year. And, and here's the thing that I've realized. They do this every year. Like, they do this every year where they surround a whole entire new team around them. And, maybe that's not the way you want to go. Maybe you want to keep the same team together, let them grow in chemistry-wise. And I know we've been doing that for forever. I know these fans are going to be like, Nordic, we've had the same top six for forever now. But in all honesty, maybe changing around the top six has stayed pretty much the same for the most part. For the most part, the top six has been entirely the same, besides the casual Zach Hyman leaving and then Michael Bunting coming in. The top six has stayed the same, but the bottom six has always been changed. So, I mean, that's just me just spitballing. But honestly, I think Toronto, I don't like some of their moves, but I also like a couple other their moves. I'm honestly going to put them in okay. These fans may criticize me and say that the tandem's going to be better, but both of those goalies were controversial this year. I still think Murray's a solid goalie, but I'm not sure if he's going to fly in Toronto. Vegas. Vegas is the first one where I can say, yeah, they had a pretty bad offseason. Well, because in all honesty, like, they made some good signings. They signed Riley Smith. They signed Brett Howden. So they got some of their guys locked up. But then you look at the Max Pacioretty trade. They traded Pacioretty for virtually nothing. Nothing. Literally nothing. They got nothing in return. That's arguably their best player on the Knights, and they just dealt him for nothing. So I'm not going to say that they did nothing, but I'm definitely putting them in bad offseason. I think they absolutely earned that rank. They did not have a good offseason at all, really, in all honesty. Next up, the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, Chicago is interesting with me. They signed players like Anthony Ciu, Max Domi, guys like that. I still think, though, that they probably could have gotten back more for Alex DeBrincat. I still think you definitely could have gotten back more than a first-round pick and a couple second and third-round picks. I still think you could have done better than that. Like, you probably could have at least gotten a player in return. And I figured maybe, maybe if you're dealing in Ottawa, maybe you could have gotten, like, Pinto, or you could have gotten, maybe even Jake Sanderson. Like, you could have honestly gotten a really solid prospect back in return for a goal scorer like Alex DeBrincat. And instead, you just wanted that number, what was it, number 7th overall pick, and some of that remarks where you selected Kevin's. I should bring up the draft rankings. I literally should have them up anyways. I don't know why I didn't. Instead of selecting Kevin Korchinski, I mean, I'm not against it, and I also like the draft of Frank Nazar. I think Frank Nazar is going to be a really solid draft forward. But honestly, Chicago, I don't mind some of the moves that they made. But overall, that DeBrincat trade, it doesn't look too good. And I know this team is trying to be bad next season. So that's kind of why I'm factoring that into this offseason tier ranking. But I feel like they were... I really don't know. I'm balancing back and forth. Like, I didn't think I'd say this, but I'm honestly balancing back and forth as to where to put them. Nope, not in good. I'm gonna stick them in okay, because although the DeBrincat trade is terrible, I think they are trying to really tank for Bedard next year. So I think that's really what they're trying to do. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing either. We know this team's going to be bad next year. And, maybe if they did this last year and didn't trade for Seth Jones, just saying, we'd be in a whole different area right now. And I said that when that trade happened. Next up, the Washington Capitals. I like the signings that the Capitals made. They signed Darcy Kemper and Charlie Lindgren. Lindgren, I think, could be a very solid, underrated backup for the Capitals. I like the draft. I like the pick of Ivan Marushenko. I like that draft pick as well. I like the acquisition of Connor Brown. I like the Connor Brown acquisition as well. So overall, I think Washington had a good offseason, and I was very unoptimistic about that goaltending tandem. So I really like in good. I like the acquisitions that Washington made. Overall, I think we're going to put them in good offseason. Next up here, the Ottawa Senators. I think it's without a question. I think everyone's going to know what I'm going to say. It's 100% amazing. Like, they had an incredible year. They had an incredible offseason. They got DeBrincat for, honestly, virtually not. I don't want to say virtually nothing, but they got DeBrincat for just draft picks, which if you're a team that's trying to become good now and make the playoffs next year, that's really good. And I think Ottawa honestly has a big chance of making the playoffs. Although the Atlantic Division is stacked, I won't disagree with that. I think it is a very good acquisition. And then obviously acquiring Cam Talbot, I like that too. If you've known me for a long time, I've said that Cam Talbot is a good goalie and is definitely a starter in the NHL, and he's proven it. So I honestly think that that's a good acquisition for the Ottawa Senators. And then they also acquired Claude Giroux. They brought him home over all the rumors. So I like that acquisition as well. And overall, I mean, all the moves that they made, they've done really good. So I think I'm going to put them in an amazing offseason. Next up, the Buffalo Sabres. I think I've said this in previous videos and TikToks, and I've pretty much said it everywhere. I think the Dark Ages are kind of behind Buffalo. I feel like, you know, maybe another year or two of kind of developing these young players. Maybe this team can make a push, or maybe this team can be a playoff team next year. But I like the signings of Ilya Lyubushkin. I like the signings of Eric Comrie. Are they going to be a playoff team next year? No, I'm not saying they are, but I do like the moves. So anyways, I think I'm going to put them, honestly, in the okay offseason column. You could honestly argue good. Like, they didn't make all too bad, and then their departures were pretty good as well. So I think overall they deserve the okay offseason. Next up, the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings, obviously, they made some big upgrades in their top six, signing Andrew Kopp and David Perron. I'm going to give Yzerman the L here. I don't like the signing. I don't like the signing of Ben Sherratt. Don't like that at all. I do like the acquisition of Marco Kasper, though. That is something I will say. I also like that as well. So, overall, I wouldn't say it's an amazing offseason, but I would say it's a pretty good offseason. To be honest, I like that addition of Kopp and Perron. You could argue amazing, but I think right now that was some good acquisitions, and they're definitely going to be a better team next year. So we'll see what Detroit can do. Next up, the New Jersey Devils. Devils, obviously, they lost out on Johnny Gaudreau, which was unfortunate, obviously. I mean, that was something that Devils fans wanted and they were begging for, but unfortunately they couldn't get him. But I like the signings of Andre Palat. I like that. The Siegenthaler contract confused me. Like, that happened yesterday. It really confused me. I was like, 5 years? Really? So, and then I also liked selecting Simone Nemec second overall. Not only was it bold, but it made sense, too, because they need defense. Obviously, they need defensemen. And letting go of PK Subban, I think, is honestly a good thing on its own. So overall, I think I'm also going to put the Devils in good offseason. Next up here, your Stanley Cup champions, the Colorado Avalanche. I mean, Colorado, you know, they lost some players. I'm not going to say they had an amazing offseason. They lost some players. They lost Kemper. They lost Burakovsky. They may have lost Nazem Kadri. It's looking like it's more and more unlikely that he comes back to Colorado. As of right now, I can check. As of right now, we don't have an update on where Nazem Kadri is even going. Nope, we do not. So we have no idea where Kadri is going as of right now. But overall, I do like the re-signings that they made. They signed Josh Manson. They signed Arturi Lehkonen. I like some of those signings. So they'll definitely be a good team next year. Obviously, they just won the Stanley Cup. The one thing that I'm a little bit hesitant about is the goaltending. I like Pavel Francouz. If you've watched my channel, I've covered Pavel Francouz and the Avalanche since 2020. Obviously, I think Francouz is starter caliber, and I think that's really what Colorado's trying to go for here. So I do like it. I think they were trying to save money and try and go for Francouz as their starter next season, and I think it makes sense. I think Francouz has really proven it. So we'll see how Francouz does. And as for Georgiev, hopefully he's better on a much more I don't want to say much more contending team, because they're both him and the Rangers are kind of the same. I hope he's definitely better on this team. So overall, it's not an amazing offseason, because an amazing offseason would be they go out and get someone, but I don't want to say okay either. I think I'm honestly going to put them in good. I mean, they won the Stanley Cup. So, I mean, right now their offseason is probably amazing, but overall, when you want to grade their moves, I think it was kind of a good offseason. Overall. Next up, the finalists, the Tampa Bay Lightning. So the Lightning, obviously, Tampa, they lost some guys. They lost Andre Palat. I don't like that. They lost Jan Rutta. I also don't like that. If you guys have watched me and watched my game reviews of Tampa, you would know that I've been a big fan of Jan Rutta. So obviously, the loss of him is devastating, but I don't mind it. I like the signings of Nichushkin and Ian Cole. I like how they got to re-sign Cirelli, Sergachev, and Chernak. But I think overall it wasn't a bad offseason, but they did lose a good amount. So overall, I think we're going to put them in the okay column. So you can kind of see a pattern here. We're kind of going from like good offseason to okay offseason to good offseason to okay offseason. So we're kind of in a pattern as of right now. Okay, Calgary. So Calgary, they are difficult with me, and they're difficult with other people as well. I've seen people put them in bad offseason because of how they lost 2 100-point scores. Now, I'm not going to say that they had a horrible or a bad offseason. I don't think they had a bad offseason. I mean, up until that big trade, they definitely had a bad offseason. They more or less, they would be in the did nothing column if I did this then. But I don't hate it. I like the Huberdeau trade. I like it overall. But I do think that people are making good points. Like Kachuk is younger, and he's going into his prime more. And obviously losing Johnny Gaudreau doesn't help that either. You're losing 2 100-point scorers for one. But overall, I think they made out pretty well in that trade. I like the addition of Mackenzie Weegar on that blue line, the star forward, and Jonathan Huberdeau, the nice little prospect, and Cole Schwindt. I like that. But for Calgary, I wouldn't say they had an amazing offseason, but I don't know about good offseason. I feel like okay offseason is kind of where you want to put them at, because honestly, like, for Calgary, I mean, when you look at them, like, they lost 2 100-point scorers for one. So, it's not a bad offseason. I mean, they did lose some of their big players, but overall, I think, honestly, maybe putting them in okay is the right way to go. I could be wrong, though. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Next up, the Anaheim Ducks. I like what the Ducks did. I like them signing Frank Vatrano and Ryan Strome. They really upgraded their top six. They got a good center replacement there for Ryan Getzlaf. I like this. I like these additions. Overall, they drafted Pavel Mintyukov, and then they also got Nathan Gutcher. So I like these additions for the Anaheim Ducks, and I think overall it wasn't all too bad of an offseason. I think it probably could have been better in some areas, but I honestly think it wasn't all too bad of an offseason. I think they've earned the good offseason status. I'm not sure if they will be a playoff team next year. I think this team might have another year of trying to figure out where to go next, but overall, I do like the direction of where the Ducks are going. If they can kind of get the streak that they had at the beginning of the year last season and get that somewhat through this season, I think they could be in good shape. Next up, my team, the Philadelphia Flyers. Honestly, you can honestly put them in did nothing. Philly, if you watched my discussion video with Off the Wall, you would know that I did not like their moves at all, and I don't understand it. Like, I really don't understand it, and Off the Wall brought this up a lot. He said that they would make a move where they would be like a contending team, like acquiring Tony DeAngelo, and then they would make a move where you're like, what? By not trading for Johnny Gaudreau, not trying to move cap space, and instead signing Nick Delorier and Justin Braun. Delorier is a fourth-line NHLer and like an enforcer, and Braun is a third-pairing defenseman. I'm not against Justin Braun or Delorier. Delorier kind of fits the Philly market, but I don't think it's going to make us better. I honestly think, and I said this a lot, I think under Fletcher we're going to be a bad team next year. We're going to be a bad team for the next couple of years. I like the signing of Cutter Gauthier, but I don't think it was good enough. I don't think it's good enough, and I don't think DeAngelo's going to pan out to what people think he's actually going to. Yeah. Next up, the New York Islanders. I don't think Islanders fans are going to disagree with me. They really haven't done much. I'm trying to think of like really what they've done. I don't think they've signed anyone. Like I'm being dead honest. I don't think they've signed literally anybody. Like I've obviously been taking and watching like all the signings and stuff because I've been covering them in mailbags. I don't think they've signed virtually anyone. Like I'm being dead honest. I don't think they signed anybody. So Islanders, obviously there could be something coming. And I think, honestly, that the fact that they have done nothing means there could definitely be, like, something coming. But, honestly, as of right now, they've done nothing. Next up, Columbus. I like the signing of Johnny Gaudreau. Who doesn't? The Gaudreau signing is amazing. The re-signing of Patrick Laine. It goes to show that Laine wants to stay in Columbus. He believes in this city. And I like that. That's good. But, on the contrary, They did sign Eric Gudbranson to that just garbage contract. When I saw that sign, I was like, what? And then they also traded Oliver Bjorkstrand. I said it right for once. For nothing. For virtually nothing. But I get why they did it, though, because they needed to get under the salary cap. I get why they did it. But was it ideal? No. So, overall, the signing of Johnny Gaudreau makes it a good offseason, but there are some bad parts in there. So you could argue, okay, I wouldn't really all too much disagree with you there. But to be honest, I think overall, as of right now, it just seems like a good offseason. So, anyways, moving on to the Montreal Canadiens. Canadiens, free agency-wise, they didn't do all too much, really. They didn't really sign any big players or any players that would really, be big. But they did trade for Evgeny Dadonov. I like that signing. They drafted Juraj Slavkovsky and Philip Meeser first overall and 26th overall. So I like those signings, obviously. And I like the Kirby Dach addition, but the Romanov thing does hurt. And, the Islanders actually did do something. They acquired Romanov, and I don't mind that move for New York. But apart from that, really didn't do anything. That's the one thing that I forgot. The Islanders actually did make a trade at the draft. They traded for Alexander Romanov, but and that doesn't really change their move at all. But overall, I don't mind Montreal's offseason. I think I'm honestly going to put them in okay. I know we're kind of going on this like really weird trend where it's like we're going from good to okay to good to okay, but I think that's honestly where Montreal belongs. Next up, the New York Rangers. Rangers, they lost a lot. They did lose a good amount. They lost Kopp. They lost Strome. They lost Keith Kincaid. They lost Keith Kincaid. I'm trying to think of who else they lost. They lost Georgiev. They've lost a good amount of players that were big in this run, and they may have lost Tyler Mott as well. I don't think Mott has re-signed with the team yet, although I think that is coming. I don't think he's re-signed as of right now. So, honestly, same goes for New York. I'm kind of looking at everything here. I'm trying to think of who did they sign? But they also signed Trocheck. I like that. I like that addition of Trocheck. Apart from that, I can't think. They signed Halak. They signed Domingue, which I thought was really funny. Apart from that, the Rangers, I wouldn't say it was a bad offseason, but I like the addition of Trocheck. But when you look at what they lost, just overall, I don't think that what they got really made up for all they lost. They're kind of like Calgary in some aspects. I'm going to put them in okay. You guys may not like that, but I think I'm going to put them in okay, to be honest. So, next up, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Well, they didn't really make too many free agency-wise signings. They signed Archibald. They signed Jan Rutta, which, if you know me, I really like that move. They re-signed Letang, Malkin, Raquel. They got contracts onto those guys. I like that. And Endis Smith as well. I like those deals. And I think, honestly, although Hextall had to extend out term to get those guys re-signed, I think it was great getting those guys signed. And it really made sense, I think, honestly. Makes sense. I think overall, I think you have to give them a good offseason. I think they had a pretty solid one. I think not losing any of their big guys was obviously a good thing. And then they obviously also signed Kasperi Kapanen there as well. Next up, the Boston Bruins. The Bruins, they really didn't do all too much. They traded away Eric Hall. They acquired Pavel Zacha. We're still waiting for a contract for him, but I don't mind the deals that Boston made. Apart from that, they really didn't do too much. They didn't have a first-round pick. No, they traded that to the Ducks. So, overall, I don't mind Boston's offseason. I don't think it was bad because they got some solid depth type players, but I don't think it was really the best either. I'm gonna put it in okay, mainly because they are still trying to work out contracts for David Krejci and Patrice Bergeron. People do need to acknowledge that. So I think Bruins overall, I think they are obviously in the okay column there. Next up, the San Jose Sharks. So San Jose there, obviously, they traded away Brent Burns. They acquired, they acquired another goalie. I forget, or they acquired like E2 McInniemi and Steve Lawrence. I like that deal. They moved out the Burns contract. They hired David Quinn. I don't mind it. I don't mind San Jose's offseason either. I think I'm going to also put them in okay. I don't mind it at all. I think it was good getting, and although Burns is a solid defense, I think it was good getting that contract out of there. They're going to be bad next year. They're kind of like Chicago. So obviously the Sharks, we'll see what they do. Next up, the Nashville Predators. They re-signed Philip Forsberg to that contract. They did draft Washington. They drafted Joakim Kamel. So obviously I like that addition. But really, apart from that, they didn't do all too much. They signed Nino Niederreiter, Kevin Lankinen. I'm trying to think of other guys that they acquired. They acquired a couple other guys that will help out with the depth. But I don't think it was a good. I don't think it was a good offseason, but it wasn't a bad offseason. So overall, I think it was okay. St. Louis, well, they lost out on Tkachuk. Trying to think of what the Blues have done. They've lost out on David Perron. They did get contracts out to Nicoletti. They traded away Ville Husso over to the Red Wings, which I also forgot to add. I like the addition of Ville Husso to Detroit. They got Thomas Greiss. They got Nicoletti. I don't think it was bad, but I don't think it was good. So I think again here we're gonna have to put them in okay. Next up here, the Edmonton Oilers. Obviously, the Oilers weren't. They made some good moves. I like the signing of Janmark. I like the signing of Jack Campbell. I still think they're a ways away. They signed Jesse Puljujärvi. They still got to sign Yamamoto. I think overall it was a good offseason. I like the moves that they made. I like them overall. So I think I think they've earned the good offseason status. Next up, Los Angeles Kings. For LA, they made the Kevin Fiala deal. I really like that. Who they draft? Actually, no, they traded the first round pick to the Wild, which the Wild drafted. I think Liam Ogren, or actually no, Danila Yurov with that pick. So I like LA. I like the LA moves overall. The Fiala deal's great. They got their contract out to Brendan Lemieux and guys like that. So I think overall they definitely have earned the status of good offseason. So I think I like LA's moves. Next up, the Arizona Coyotes. We're going to move down here a little bit. Arizona. Obviously, they're still going to be a rebuilding team next year. They're not going to be good. Still trying to contend for more draft picks and all that good stuff. I would expect a Jacob Chikrin trade to happen. But overall, I like the moves that they made, signing Josh Brown, Troy Stetcher, signing guys that will kind of like add additional depth and help you out with the rebuild. I like the additions of Logan Cooley, Maverick Lemieux, and Connor Geekie. I like those signings as well. So overall, I think I'm honestly going to put Arizona in okay offseason. I like the moves that Arizona has made. Florida, apart from the Matthew Tkachuk deal, they've done nothing really. They've let a lot of players go. That's one thing I have noticed with the Panthers. They have let a lot of players go. Especially, they let go of John Newberry, they let go to Uyghur. So obviously they're weaker, but I like their move with the Tkachuk. I think Tkachuk, obviously a much younger player, still heading into his prime. I like that deal. So I think overall, I think we're going to put Florida in okay. And just like Calgary, they're overall in okay. Next up, Vancouver. I actually almost forgot we got to put Seattle in after this because they're actually not in this tier ranking. Vancouver, I like the addition of Kuzmenko. I like the addition of Ilya Mikheyev. But overall, and I like the re-signing of Brock Besser as well. And then they also got Jonathan Lekkerimäki in free agency. But overall, Vancouver, apart from that, didn't really do all too much. So I think they have earned the status of okay offseason. And then finally, the Seattle Kraken. I think that overall, Seattle, they had a solid offseason. They got Burakovsky. They got some depth players. They signed Schultz. Obviously, fourth overall, they got Shane Wright, which some people may look at that as a steal. So, honestly, they could earn the status of amazing offseason, but I think I'm going to put them in good. So, there you go. That is my offseason tier rankings. This definitely will not be the last offseason tier rankings we will do. Anyways, thank you all very much for watching. For Ice Porsley, I really do appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe down below. If you are new, we did that in just about 30 minutes. So, anyways, thank you all very much for watching. For Ice Porsley, I really do appreciate it. And anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. Adios.